Good day, this is meteorologist Kyle Galloway coming to you from the 24/7 Fleetweather Ocean Routing Center. The time is about 10:30 UTC on the 25th of September 2022, and this is a brief overview of current tropical activity in the Western Pacific Ocean. Taking a look at the Joint Typhoon Warning Center, we see two systems here. We see Super Typhoon Noru, which is located about 90 miles east-northeast of Manila in the Philippines at this time, as well as Invest 96W here out in the open ocean, which has been classified as TDA by the RSMC, Japan Meteorological Agency in Tokyo. We'll touch on that in a moment. Here's the latest forecast from the RSMC as well. We see Super Typhoon Noru down here, just east of central Luzon, expected to continue on a general west to west-northwest track over the next 12 to 18 hours before beginning to track more westerly and eventually just south of due west as it tracks across the South China Sea into central Vietnam, likely within the next 72 hours, and then gradually dissipating thereafter. For TDA, north of Guam, well north of Guam, uh, expected to continue on a northwest trajectory over the next 24, 48 hours before beginning to recurve out to sea, but we'll dive into that one more in just a moment. First, taking a look more closely back at Nauru, here's the latest advisory from the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. Very close agreement with what was forecasted by the RSMC, with the system moving across Luzon over the next 12 to 18 hours, likely just remaining to the north of Manila, and then continuing steadily westward across the South China Sea, remaining a typhoon and re-intensifying after a brief period of weakening as it crosses the mountainous terrain of the Philippines, but re-intensifying as it moves across the warm waters of the South China Sea and eventually into central Vietnam, likely around 6C on the 28th, making landfall about that time. The latest satellite image here from SIMS, the system underwent a period of very rapid intensification over the last 24, 36 hours. You see a very well-defined eye early in this imagery. Uh, Now, as the system is beginning to make approach landfall here in Luzon, we're starting to see the frictional effects of the terrain taking effect on the system, with a fairly good period of weakening anticipated over the next 12 to 18 hours as the system moves across. But the system is still expected to remain a formidable cyclone emerging out into the South China Sea. Latest ensemble guidance here in very tight agreement with the track, not really too much of an outlier, either from the European here on the left or the GFS on the right, with the center of the system tracking generally between 15 and 16 north latitude, steadily across the South China Sea. So the system is expected to remain fairly progressive before, again, moving into central parts of Vietnam within about 72 hours. Next, we'll focus back on 96W, or TDA, as described by the JMA. Here's the animated satellite again from SIMS. You see a center of the circulation is just about in here, starting to get its act together. I wouldn't be surprised to see this become a name system for the Joint Typhoon Warning Center within the next 12 hours or so. The system has been tracking off to the north or slightly west of north over the last several hours. And the latest ensemble guidance here, again, we have the ECMWF here on the left and the GFS on the right, remaining in fairly good agreement with that northward track over the next 24 hours or so before bending back a little bit more toward the northwest in the 24 to 48 hour time frame, with both sets of guidance expecting the system to recurve out to sea off to the northeast, remaining safely to the southeast of Japan. And again, and here's the longer range ensemble guidance with the system expected to track quickly up into the mid latitudes after it begins the recurving process. Lastly, we'll take a look at the latest operational GFS model from our in-house product. See, we'll focus in on Nauru here first. Again, moving across the Philippines here in the next 18 hours or so, emerging back out into the South China Sea. This is about 0Z on the 26th. Then as we go forward in time, you see the system re-intensifying. And at that point, 28-0Z here, the system is just along the central coast of Vietnam, and then moving inland and dissipating from there. I'll go back to the beginning and focus in on 96W or TDA. Not much of a reflection in the GFS at this point. But as the system moves off to the north and eventually northwest, the center really does start to get its act together. And this is a 27-0Z. You see a fairly wound up system at about 28 north, 141 east. Thereafter, the system begins to recurve off to the northeast, passing to the southeast of Japan, and eventually out into the open North Atlantic mid-latitude or North Pacific mid-latitudes. Backing up just a bit, just a heads up, this is 29-0Z. You'll see the GFS model begins to spin up potentially a second system in the South China Sea. This is 30-0Z, and going forward, here's a 1st of October at 0Z, and then the 2nd of October at 0Z. Not all of our computer guidance is picking up on this trend as of yet, um, but this is something that we'll be keeping a very close eye on over the next few days, and especially given the current impacts to the main north-south shipping lanes here through the South China Sea from Nauru. This could have additional impacts to these very busy shipping lanes in the longer range. Thank you for watching. I'm meteorologist Kyle Gallagly. Stay connected and safe.